often do we begin to substitute our goals for our emotions? If you're anything like me, you've been in that situation where you've made the whole plan, you set everything out, you know what you're trying to do, you know what you're attempting to accomplish, but at the same time, you find yourself falling to the desire for comfort, falling to the desire to please those around you, falling to the desire to feel a certain amount of control rather than doing the thing that you need to do in an uncomfortable way because it does not feel common to you. I think these are all things that we deal with, but today on the Larger Than Logic podcast, we're going to dig into this a little bit deeper, and hopefully through me telling this story of my journey with this, it might help you. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, this thought came to my plate because I realized at where I stand right now, right, where I sit with this whole podcasting thing, with my discipleship journey and being a good husband to my wife, right, and raising my little beautiful daughter, I've realized how easy it is if I'm not intentional that I can flip-flop in every stage of my life to a place where I'm beginning to vie to feel emotionally comfortable rather than I'm vying for the result that we're all shooting for, right? Case in point, in my discipleship, sometimes if I'm not intentional, I can forget that it is my duty to be making disciples. Of course, that can come from how you study. Of course, that can come from how you pray. But I realize in my own personal life that when I get in front of people sometimes, and then I hear the things that they're going through, I hear them lament, I hear them complain, I hear them talk about their struggles, the compassionate side of me, from an emotional standpoint, can sometimes tell me provide comfort rather than provide Christ. That's a big issue, right? Sometimes when I'm at home and I know that my wife's had a rough day and I know that my daughter is tired and so she's crying and things are just so emotionally charged, I can forget that I have a duty, right, where I'm supposed to be at each moment intending to push them closer to Christ. Granted, my daughter's a little baby. She don't even know how to say the word Christ. But in my example, right, in the options that I suggest in terms of how to handle issues in my conversation and my countenance and my demeanor and how I'm handling the situations that I'm dealing with in my own life, is interesting how in an instant, right, I can forget, just like you probably can forget, that Christ is expecting us to push everything and do everything in a certain manner or be leading every situation back to his feet, right? When I'm at work, I can get so caught up in my head of trying to navigate the social arena, right? How are my coworkers feeling and moving today? How's my boss moving and feeling today? How are all of these things going to affect me? And as a result, of course, I find myself in a situation where I'm constantly trying to move and juggle and balance and bounce and attempting to figure out where I fit in that day. And in all of these arenas, I'm allowing myself to be, for lack of better words, a follower than a leader. I'm allowing everything around me to dictate my actions, allowing everybody around me to change the temperature of how I move rather than being intentional with the calling that I know has been placed on my life and in my position, not only as a man, husband, and father, but as a disciple, right? And so on today, what I'm realizing very, very apparently is the importance that I begin to center myself around, of course, objective, but make sure that I'm centering myself around godly objective, because we could all have goals, right? We could all have intentions, but every intention may not necessarily be in alignment with Christ. And that can come in the work arena, the family arena, even the church arena. You can come in on Sunday morning attempting to be the best support to every single last person around you and completely and totally be leading them away from Christ. That can be through how you validate. That can be through how you joke and jest in order to distract them from their situation. That can be in how you treat them. You might say something and be so disingenuous. You might be trying to crack on another person and make jokes on another person and joan on another person to make another person laugh. And it could be damaging. There's so many things that we could subconsciously do, right, if we're not on our pivot and being very, very intentional about why we're walking into a space and what we're intending to do when we walk into these spaces. Another thing that I realize is this also, when we're making these objectives, right, and when we're intentionally trying to move ourselves away from this place of reacting emotionally, but being on purpose instead, sometimes Our mind can be in a certain place, but our actions won't follow. We can have everything in our head that we might want to do or that we know we're supposed to do, but for some reason we cannot get ourselves to actually take the actions. I would even say it's akin to myself sometimes when my alarm clock goes off, right? I know it's time for me to get up, but I cannot help but snooze. Man, I was talking to my wife the other night. I had fallen asleep. I had laid across the bed. I told myself I was going to get up. But when it got time to get up, it's like a weight. It was just pulling my body back to the bed. No matter what I tried, no matter what I did, it felt like I could not get my body to move. And this is like a real physical thing. Granted, it's not the reality. We all have control over our extremities. But I'm saying this to say it's the exact same way sometimes when we're attempting to carry out certain actions, right? We're attempting to show up in spaces in a way that Christ would be proud of, in a way that Christ would endorse. But sometimes what's in our head does not come out. Sometimes it's the opposite situation, right? We get so caught up in trying to do the physical things, trying to look the right way, trying to say the right thing, whether it be at work, whether it be at church, whether it be in the home with our families, whether it be with our friends. We try to look a certain way, like we have it together, like we're pristine, like we're clean, like we're on our pivot, right? Like we're handling our business. All the while we have a Matthew 23 verse 25 type situation where we're Pharisaical, right? Where we're doing everything to make the outside of the cup look clean and sparkly and shiny, but what's on the inside is just so messed up. We're sitting here mad, resentful, angry, prideful, jealous, feeling lazy, all of these sinful thoughts and things inside our body that we're not dealing with. But as long as nobody can tell from the outside, we act like it's all cool. Now, hey, I don't mean to be judgmental. I don't mean to be accusatory, but I just know this is something that I've dealt with. And sometimes it's worse than other times. Sometimes it could be something that may not be as detrimental to somebody else. Sometimes it could be so bad where I can't get myself to smile when somebody talking to me. But this is something that nonetheless I have to be accountable for. And so I know you need to be accountable for it too. And so on today, one thing I'm realizing, or the biggest thing that I'm realizing, is that at all times, we need to make ourselves mindful, right? We need to put ourselves in this position where not only are we spending time with Christ, right, that we're studying, that we're praying, but that we're allowing ourselves to embody a man of God that's so intentional that it's almost impossible for something to break our focus, right? Sometimes, not even say sometimes, I would go as far as to say all the time, if we would put ourselves in a position where we have our goals even written down for when we step into a space. I know for a fact that I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z when I walk into this space. I want to make sure that when I walk into work, I get these tasks done and I encourage these people. When I walk into the church building, I want to make sure that my ministry that I'm over is running how it's supposed to, and that I encourage these people in this way. Oh, I want to make sure that I share this portion of my study when I'm at home. I want to make sure that when I'm feeling down, I intentionally give God thanks. I want to make sure that when it comes time to knock out this chore, that I do these things as if I'm doing them for God, right? It's just so many different things. And I don't know what it looks like in your situation because I can't speak to what you might feel as though you need different motivations and things for. But what I can say is that chasing an emotion will never get us anywhere. Emotions are fleeting. Chasing a pseudo form of comfortability will never get us anywhere. A lot of times as men, we're not told this. We're not talked to about it. Of course, we're told, when we're sad or something hurts us, don't cry, right? And it's kind of crazy because sometimes it could be more of an emotional suppression thing than actually being able to navigate positively your emotions, right? Sometimes when we are heartbroken or hurt, we're told the same thing. Oh, ignore that mess. It doesn't matter. But we're rarely told that we need to be focusing on a goal, and a godly goal that is, rather than focusing on the emotion. Sometimes, and honestly, I'd even take this a step further and I'll take it in a different direction. I think that why this is so important is because if we aren't told this, right, if we aren't given this message, especially as younger men, sometimes we can forget that just because things feel good, they're not actually good. Sometimes we can see the results of everybody else around us and forget that there's still work that we need to do on the inside of our temple, right? There's sometimes situations where just because the bills are paid, just because the lights are on, just because the house is clean, just because we have some time to chill, we forget that even in our chilling, our mind still needs to be with Christ. Just because things are going good doesn't mean that we can lay down our discipleship. And so this is just a reminder to me that I never can allow myself to fall to a place where I'm inviting the mediocrity of Satan into my life, which will ultimately have me begin to exemplify that to the people around me, especially my family. And then when they begin to exemplify the same things, there's nobody to blame but Avery. There's nobody to blame but dad. There's nobody to blame but brother. You know what I'm saying? And so this is my encouragement to you. Allow yourself to step away from that emotional space, not necessarily from a standpoint of suppressing, but allow yourself to be recentered on Christ in every moment that you possibly can. Make sure you're staying up on your study, my guy. Make sure you're staying up on your prayer. Make sure that you are surrounding yourself with things that are pushing you closer and not pulling yourself further away. I know it's hard, right? We're in a situation in a time where your phone has everything at the touch or at the tip of your fingertips, rather. And it's so easy to be distracted. It's so easy for your focus to be broken. But I can promise you, the lifestyle that you'll have, the results that you'll have on the other side of intentionally focusing yourself around Christ-centered activity, Christ-centered goals, Christ-centered lifestyle, bruh, it is transformational from the inside out, and everybody around you is blessed. Do not let yourself be a Pharisee, my guy. Do not let yourself be in the position of an individual who is literally doing everything to just have the appearance of things being okay or the appearance of things moving forward, but on the inside, you're disgusting. Don't be a person who wants nothing but to feel a sense of comfort on the inside without actually doing the work on the outside and setting the goals and accomplishing the goals for God on the outside. Allow yourself to be a person that has their mind, their spirit, and their body all aligned, all cylinders firing off at the same time, everything going in the exact same direction, which is pulling you closer to Christ. Man, we live in a world where there's so many fleeting emotions, ideologies, thoughts, bruh. And honestly, that's why so many of us are confused. You got dudes who say all day long, oh, I believe this, I believe that. We got the Hebrew Israelites, we got Islam, we got all these different religions. We have people talking about the universe and all this new age stuff. We have so many people pushing so many different ideologies. But then at the end of that, we look at the results that we get out of life and they don't align. If the way that you're living life is so good, right? If the God that you serve is so good or the way that you serve God is so good, why don't you have any peace? Why don't you have any security or stability? Why is your body still taking control of you in every situation? Not saying that we don't all have a fleshly battle, but I'm saying that when you're serving a God that is worth serving, it shows in your life. And so on today, move yourself away from that, bro. Don't allow yourself to be taken captive by your emotions and how you feel. And don't chase emotions and good feelings, but chase godly results. In each moment, I promise you, it will bless you. It will change your life. Hey, look, man, once again, my name is Avery Taylor, and you are tuned into the Large and Logic podcast. I'm so glad that you've allowed me to be part of that you've allowed me to be a part of your journey. Share this with a bro. Share this with a cousin. Share this with your dad. Share this with somebody that you care about, because the more men that can adopt that mindset that is inside of Christ, the better we can all be, the better the world can be. But y'all know what time it is. I'm out.